Today's episode is dedicated to my pal Claire, who named that wee frog Clive. So hello guys, and welcome to episode 2 of the Glasgow Memories Podcast. I'm Frank McGowan, and I'm here with another fantastic guest. This week I have the lovely Helen from Spirit of Springburn in Glasgow. Helen, hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
Not too bad. It's been a hectic day. You've already been filming with us today, so this is yet another interview. You must be pretty tired of me asking you questions by now.
Well, I could talk for Scotland, and I actually quite enjoyed talking about my work.
For the people listening into the podcast, can you tell us a bit more about Spirit of Springburn?
Spirit of Springburn is a new charity set up by local people in Springburn in north east of Glasgow. It's a community-led organisation that focuses on the health, wellbeing and I guess the future of the folk of Springburn. We just are looking to have a better quality of life and take part in the decisions that are made around us, by local authority and folk higher up the food chain, so we make sure that their voice is counted.
That's amazing. I know just now there's quite a focus in getting the high street back to Springburn. All the kind of shops have just kind of died a death over the years. What else is really important to Spirit of Springburn at this time?
Making the place look better, trying to bring in some nice places to go, create some new community groups, youth groups, groups for older folk as well, just anything that anyone wants.
There's been a lot of promises over the years from councillors, local authority and, leaders to improve lives in the north of the city. None of them have really came to fruition. What do you think's people's mindset at the moment, and what kind of approach are you guys taking to make things happen? Because I know you're very, very passionate about actually seeing things through.
A lot of places have lost out, and so much it has been a challenge. Life has been difficult for many people in so many different ways that I think some people are sceptical. They just don't feel that it's worth that fight. If we take part, we can make such a difference, and if there's enough of us, we can change the world.
So what's the focus at the moment? What message are you looking to get out there right now?
I'm hoping to attract more people to get involved in it, local folk.
You heard it here first, everyone. Get involved with Spirit of Springburn. This year is another year of the Springburn Community Street Festival. You guys close off the roads and get everyone together from every section in the community and have a massive party. Tell us a little bit more.
This will be our second year, and it turned out to be a wonderful event. A full day, the roads closed off, stalls, activities, fun things for kids and adults, vintage buses, beautiful old buses, different activities, and music just brings folk together.
You guys are actually based in Springburn, in the heart of Springburn. Do you want to let the listeners know where to find you?
We have a Springburn Community Hub, which is in Springburn Shopping Centre. The Community Hub is a lot of things for a lot of different people. We support people where we can. If folk come in the door, if they're needing something, if we can't do it, then we'll signpost and find out who can.
What do you think is the best thing about being so involved in the community?
That's a great question, actually. I think I get to meet people. I get to know them. I get to hear stories. We've got folk from Afghanistan, Kurdistan, Sudan, Senegal, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Brazilian, Chinese. I get to hear and see the best in folk. I work locally as well, community development for Springburn, which is practically next door. It's a small town centre, call it that.
What was your experience of community growing up?
When I look back, you never thought or had a label for it. It was just how it was.
Yeah, so true.
Your neighbours, you were never out of each other's houses. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
If you needed anything, it was sugar. Yeah, can I borrow something? We didn't have a phone. You go next door with 10 pence and ask to use the phone, and you made your own entertainment. During the summer holidays or Easter holidays, we would have our own shows, community shows. The curtains would be the stage show, and the closed door, if you like, was the actual stage. We had music, we'd dance. When I look back, hilarious. Da, 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 da. That's something that I miss. I wanted to sing and I wanted to act. You just had fun.
Do you want to let the people at home know more about your plans for the old Springburn Library?
We have an application to take over the old Springburn Library and Museum. It's a Carnegie library. It's a beautiful old building. It's been kind of neglected. We are hoping for a few social enterprises, local social enterprises, to come in with us And we will look at building a development trust, a community development trust for Springburn.
Wow.
Because there's no places to go in Springburn. It's just the fact. I really would like to see more shops, more restaurants. There's a small couple of cafes, but they're limited. We have the opportunity to have an outdoor cinema. We've got the equipment. We have exhibition space. In fact, we have a couple of the statues, the ladies that were on the old Springburn public halls. They're still in the building. I want to get them back out again.
Heritage is something that makes Spirit of Springburn a wee bit different. You guys are actually building links to the past as well as for the future. What plans do you guys have at the moment, and what can we expect over the next couple of years?
We are looking at the heritage of Springburn, keeping the story going, making it visible. Back in the late 19th century, there were at one point 5 companies that manufactured and shipped railways, engines, locomotives all over the world. I think it was 20% of the world's stock came from Springburn. It's ongoing. We still have the railways here in Springburn, but unfortunately the Caledonian just closed. I think it was 2 years ago. It closed its doors, which is very sad, in fact. However, the history and the want actually to bring locomotive railways history back, we're working on it.
What's something that people at home listening might not know about the area? Something that isn't, for the most part, covered in the history books?
Stockhill Hospital, at one point in the First World War, there is a train line that links from Glasgow Central, lower level, right up through the back of Glasgow, straight up into Stockhill Hospital. I used to bring sick and injured soldiers, and the railway line it's not, obviously it's not there anymore, but the actual markings in the ground is still there.
Wow.
There's an awful lot of history, an awful lot in Springburn, and folk aren't aware of it, you know. We've got an elderly community as well that's got libraries full of stories. We must get them recorded.
Absolutely.
And these people can tell us about it, can tell us firsthand what it was like looking back, and it'd be a real sin if we missed that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. So Helen, what are some of your earliest memories of growing up in Glasgow?
I remember that it used to be the Monklands Canal. The Monklands Canal is now your M8 motorway, and I remember that getting built. See, when I tell folk that, they just cannot believe it. Really? Easter House was quite young, and so was Queensley, which is no longer there. The community was cooled down in the 80s, I think. And I remember the old country roads, the canal, and an old farmhouse, which was, everything was derelict then because it was left for decades. I will admit I was very, very quiet, very withdrawn. And as my mother used to say, there's fields over there, there's fields, go play. And all of this countryside, you explored.
What sort of thing did we, Helen the Explorer, get up to?
Catching bees with jam jars. Oh, God help us, that's 100 years ago at least. And letting them go, and catching wee fish in any puddles that we found that we thought had fish in it.
Did you have any nicknames growing up?
They used to call me George. Do you know, like the Famous Five, the old programme? Apparently I look like George.
What games do you remember playing?
It was always like kick the can, chases, tick, skipping ropes, and for me as a kid, the best thing ever. You always knew when it was time to come in, you would get the carol whistle, and everybody knew the carol whistle. They hear that, right, Helen, you're in, and you go, that's your dad's look. If I never heard it, somebody come up and tell me, that's you being looked for.
I remember growing up in Black Hill, going up with my mates and exploring the old rhubarb fields and going up to where the big Asda is now. This was in the 90s, so there was nothing there at the time. We'd go camping and have adventures and play games. We actually found a frog one day, and it was like the biggest thing ever. My mate Claire called him Clive. It's just it doesn't compare to looking at a screen, in my opinion. I see my wee cousins just sitting with their headsets on, their computers, and I'm like, go out and get dirty. And they're all horrified at the thought. I was clatty every day, climbing trees and whatnot. I remember actually going underground one day. My mates and I found a tunnel. We ended up having to be rescued, mind you. Maybe I should have been sitting with my Game Boy instead. Would have got into less trouble.
Because you will have been many.
So are there any hidden parts of the area that people might not know about? Any interesting wee nooks or places to explore locally that are kind of built into the heritage?
There's gorgeous mural in Springburn, just in Cowlairs. And where it is, it points into Cowlairs area, which is just off Kepikill Road. And it's the locomotive, and it's stunning, absolutely stunning.
I think I know the one you're talking about.
It's kind of hidden out the way. Mm-hmm. And that's the centre, if you like, of our kind of heritage, our history. All of those beautiful old locomotives. The train heritage in Springburn is what gave Springburn its life in the very beginning.
Yeah.
It was a very small parish or area, if you like, but back then it finally became part of Glasgow. It's stunning, absolutely beautiful. And down at Cowlairs, there's a wee community down there as well, a wee community garden too. It's just, these things folk don't know about, but it's just, it could be the end of your street.
There's Springburn Castle as well. Most people don't actually know Springburn has a castle.
That was built by Blaze. And I think he built it, was intending to give it to a bride-to-be or something, and she refused him. And I don't think he was too chuffed. And I think he never moved into it and sold it. So it is kind of I wouldn't call it a folly, but I think it was something that he built specifically for her, but she denied.
You can see it from most parts of Springburn where you are, but for years I hadn't noticed it. I suppose it was kind of hidden as well from parts of Springburn, because again, if you don't look up from where you are, you won't see it. The park in Springburn's beautiful as well. If you've not been, it's got some great spaces.
Oh, Springburn Park. They guys have been working their butts off for a long time trying to get funding. Yeah, so true. It was to kind of refurbish and bring back some form of the winter gardens. They've done so much work. They didn't get the funding. However, they are looking at making it a living ruin, which is the term. It's going to be made. It is safe. The structure's sound. I know that for a fact. They're looking for funding to make it. When you can actually walk into it and use it as a venue. That kind of thing. It could be a venue for the arts. Obviously there's no roof or anything, but it is, because of the structure, it's really interesting. It's like engineering. It's beautifully constructed. Beautiful building. I remember my mum was on the community council back in the 70s in Glasgow, and there was a drive back then to clean up the winter gardens, repair the broken windows and clean up all the bird poo for the statues. And I think as well, I remember she told me about a drive to raise money to remove a wasp's nest, I think it was, from a water fountain in Alexandra Park over near Duke Street. Again, it's just local people doing amazing things like yourself, you're doing now, driving change, just making a difference. We're so lucky to have these wonderful parks and areas, and they're just a stone's throw from where we live in the city, just these beautiful green spaces. Springburn Park as a whole is just beautiful, and there's activities that go on throughout the year, like outdoor yoga, pet yoga, kind of bring along your dog kind of thing. There is a lot of activities, park run, youth park run as well, and there's a lot of organisations that do foraging, and different herbalists and things use it for teas as well. They'll plant like lemon balm, mints, and all that kind of, we're using the space that we have. Yeah. We've got the village up there, used to be the depot for Glasgow City Council's parks. It's now the Boathouse, which is a cafe. That's amazing. And the auditorium, which is exactly what it says, Springburn Auditorium. It used to be a big, massive Nissan hut, and it stored the council equipment for roads. They brought in Glasgow Piano City, I think. Forgive me if I've got their name wrong, but it's the reconditioned pianos have all been knocked together and made into seating. It's wonderful, yeah. We've got men's sheds as well, which is going from strength to strength. We've got Springburn Youth Forum, have a wee outdoor space, Your Space it's called. But the park, it's a gorgeous park. You're listening to the Glasgow Memories Podcast. Stay tuned to hear more from Helen Carroll as she talks more about life growing up in Glasgow and about her community work as part of the Spirit of Springburn, elevating the culture, history, heritage and people of North Glasgow, with events, activities and support for those facing isolation and loneliness. We'll see you after this short break. Today's episode of the Glasgow Memories Podcast is brought to you by Braw TV, Scotland's new free global TV channel.
broadcasting new Scottish programming as well as some old TV favourites at home and around the world. Visit watchbrotv.com to find out how you can watch Bro TV for free, and follow via socials at WatchBro using the hashtags BroTV and Scotland Goes Global. Are you interested in having your brand or business be part of the Glasgow Memories podcast, reaching listeners on all popular streaming platforms? With packages starting from just £45, visit glasgowmemoriespodcast.co.uk for more information. If you're enjoying this podcast, leave us a review on your podcatcher of choice, hit that share button, or simply just tell a pal about the Glasgow Memories podcast. Share your Glasgow memories at Glasgow Memories Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and if you have a story to tell, email glasgowmemories@badponymediagroup.co.uk to get in touch with our producers. And now, back to the show. Welcome back to the Glasgow Memories Podcast. My guest today is Helen Carroll from Spirit of Springburn, who grew up in Glasgow and is sharing her story of community and being part of an active community right now in North Glasgow.
For me, architecture, I love going into the centre of Glasgow. We will see that there's a lot of buildings that are just not the best state, and it's a shame. I will say to local authority and government and who else, they should be ashamed. They should be taken care of. They should be taken care of. There's nothing to say that something can't be repurposed, or if you can't, give it to somebody to look after. Or if there's folk that's homeless, give it to somebody that can do something with it.
Yeah.
But do you know, on Hope Street, there's a building that if I ever became rich, I would buy. There used to be a place where you would buy your stationery and things. It was on the ground floor. Above, there is a shape of a building that stands on its own. It has the oddest shape near the top, and I don't know what it was, but it is my favourite building. Sat on its own.
I think I know the one you're talking about.
The stationers was there for decades on the ground floor, because I remember it as my first job, going in and getting paper and things for the office, because there wasn't many back then.
That was going to be my next question, actually. What were some of your first jobs?
I was an office junior and I was absolutely petrified of phones, because we never had a phone. The girl at training looked at me and said, "Helen, every time you answer the phone, we would howl. We just looked at you. You looked as though you were a deer caught in headlight." Because I was terrified to answer it, because I had no idea what to say. I remember that fear, that white-hot fear, as though it was yesterday.
I think everybody has their kind of fear of when you're stepping into a new job and there's something new, whether that's an interaction with a person or whether that's working with technology. Everybody's got that fear of something. But in terms of jobs and stuff like that, what led you into your kind of community work that you're doing now? What was the transition for you? How did that come about?
By accident. It was someone that told me that there was a job part-time at Cash for Kids, and I didn't think I would get it. Cash for Kids is a charity for young children or families of children that don't have money, particularly around the Christmas period. In my day when I was there, it was £25. You make the application, and as a mother, father, guardian, carer, organisation, it doesn't have to be for an individual. It can be a group making an application for a group of kids. As long as you have someone that can vouch for you, you can make an application to get funding for a Christmas gift or a Christmas activity. Because it was such a small team, you just did everything that needed done. So it was a lot of fundraising, a lot of telephone conversations. You would meet some of the celebrities. There was the Cash for Kids ball, lunches, and meeting some of the folk that needed the money. That's what got me into it, because I knew when we were young we had problems in our family with poverty. I remember in the 70s and 80s when things were really bad for maybe different reasons, but I ended up working 8 years, became their finance manager, just worked my way up in experience. I loved it because I got involved. You're an all-rounder. You have to learn to be fast on your feet. You have to learn, if you don't know, find out who does.
Yeah.
And if there's a gap, find out where, or if there is some way that it can be filled. I'm a problem solver. If there is a need, then we have to address it. It's a wonderful organisation, and it's made differences, particularly at what can be such a difficult time. Every January we would total it up, and we would have had money given out for maybe 150,000 children. Meant those kids could have a Christmas.
I remember being one of those kids.
Wow.
Well, I was in the hospital actually. Yep. 1987, 1988, Tiger Tim Stevens was on the radio. I even got a signed photo, which I still have. And I got what I wanted for Christmas that year. The Kenner Real Ghostbusters Ecto 1.
Wow.
My dad got to jail and my mum was really struggling. Made it a really memorable Christmas. Did you have a memorable Christmas or Christmas present from back in the day?
Dare I even admit to this? Do you remember the Sony Walkmans?
Yes.
I just couldn't stop singing. I remember my grandmother, be quiet in the middle at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's me belting out Gladys Knight in the Pips. It was, you were in another planet.
So what genres of music do you still enjoy?
I really do love jazz, from the 40s, 50s, 60s, Motown.
Yeah.
To classics. I love classics. I love the charts as well. See, R&B.
Yeah.
Honest to God, see these folk, they are geniuses.
Do you play any instruments?
When I was at school, I played the violin, just transported to another world.
Were you good?
I was in a school orchestra and we went to Bruges in Belgium and I loved it. I think it was the Glasgow Youth Orchestra, and it was a hell of an experience. It was wonderful. It was a new world for me, and it's something I really miss. I haven't taken much time for myself. I don't know how I would have got through some of the most difficult times without having access to beautiful music.
Do you remember any classic TV shows you used to tune into back in the day? You're transported back to that old shining box in the corner. What do you remember being on that you used to watch and really enjoy?
It will always be Dr. Hugh. Hugh? Dr. That's his brother. Dr. Hugh. Dr. Hugh.
Dr. Hugh's the boss.
Sounds a bit... I always loved it. Always loved Doctor Who. Always. And science fiction things. Anything to do with Star Trek.
Yeah.
Loved. Absolutely. And adored. Pure escapism. Joe 90.
It's still in my brain. I'm actually reading the Jerry Anderson biography book just now about his life and like all the shows like Terrorbox and Thunderbirds and Joe 90 and all these shows. Super Mario Nation. I love Terrorbox. Zelda used to scare the one that shit out of me. Oh my god. And as well, it's really, really bad, but the woman that lived across the landing for me and of course when I was growing up looked like Zelda in her nightgown. So I'd run away to her going, Zelda! Like, and our granddaughter's now 2 years later when we met, I was out in Glasgow and she bumped into me and she went, oh, hi Finn. I was like, oh, do you remember me? She said, I remember you used to call my granny Zelda. I was like, oops. What about kind of TV nowadays? What kind of TV shows do you enjoy watching now? What's your kind of go-to?
I like the, as I say, supernatural or fantasy kind of things. There's something, I can't remember this thing, that's so annoying. The plot line is there is a fog that's separating one world from the other, and it's something and bone. I would do this, I know I want to keep saying skin and bone, but it's not. Or is it skull and bone or something? It's current, it's good. Again, pure escapism. And you know, I'm on YouTube practically every day.
Yeah.
Every day I'm looking at things about history. I'm just learning. I'd love to go to Jerusalem. I would like to see the kind of the Holy Lands, but I am into architecture. I love seeing what there is. I'm not particularly a religious person, but there's beautiful buildings in there that have stories.
Who were the significant people growing up in your life that kind of influenced you, and the people? What sort of people did you have around you that kind of stood out?
For me, it was always taking a lead from my mother, my grandmother. You had strong people in role models in your immediate life. I mean, this is like 60s, 70s.
I had a lot of that kind of sense of togetherness back then, I suppose. Even when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was like your GPs, elderly folk in the street, peers, teachers even. Did you have a favourite teacher at school? What was wee Helen like at school? Did you enjoy school?
I hated school.
Really?
I was bullied from primary 7 right up until my 4th year. It was only in my 5th year that I suddenly grew a set, learned the hard way. I'm a real advocate for any person, any child that's having problems in school. This is something that must be tackled now, and it's still there decades after my time. It's frightening, it's online, and it costs lives. It's the worst, I would say, to any person, and I don't just mean children, any person that feels victimised, intimidated, to get help. Always get help. That's not aggressing, that's survival. unfortunately, people can get to such an extent where they are in crisis, and the pandemic has just put a microscope on it, and folk have difficulty dealing with it, and it costs lives.
That's so true.
And folk are valuable, very, very valuable.
Speaking of valuable, it seems music was really valuable to you at school. You found your niche, you travelled the world, you went to Germany. That's a hell of an achievement. I just want to take a moment just to explore that a little bit more. The furthest I got when I was at school was the tuck shop. I was a wee fatty. We never went anywhere like significant around the world or anything like that. What was that experience like? I'm well jealous.
8 days of solid work. It was graft. We got to see some of it's like going on gigs, but it was hard graft. I was 13, knackered, and I got to bed at 11 o'clock at night and up at 7 the next morning. Talk about child labour. But it was what an experience. The actual opera was Ruth, the opera Ruth, and music. Again, there's not enough music in schools. I know in their local schools they don't have it. They don't have the funds for it. It's a real shame. I mean, going back to the spirit, I say I'm a problem solver. There are so many issues out there, but it's trying to get folk to address them.
Yeah.
Now is the time. That's why it's down to community. We must help ourselves, because at the worst of times, we need to help each other.
So what's the focus right now for Spirit of Springburn? What's the right here and right now? The big issue that you're facing and concentrating on that solution for?
We as an organisation, as a charity, how do we communicate with people? Back in the day, it used to be face-to-face.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's not. When it was face-to-face, it was at school, or it was through parents, with parents to their peers, to other members of the community. Nowadays, it's not done. How can we talk to each other again? I had a meeting this morning, and we all want to do so much, but we cannot get the word out there. Springburn is a big community. Not everyone's online. Not everyone uses a phone or has a smartphone.
Yeah.
Do we go around and trap doors? There's that fear element. Do we go and put things through doors? You have to get into closes, buildings. And again, there's that fear element. How can we make people come outside again?
Yeah, especially post-pandemic, it's so important because people have felt so isolated, and older people in the community feel isolated. I think it's just about having conversations like this on a public forum. Younger people that are out there listening, maybe can get involved. Older people in the community can get involved. Let's get together, have a wee coffee and chat about what we can do. Where can people find out more about Spirit of Springburn?
Well, we've got a Facebook page. We want you to come and tell us if you have an idea. Come and see us. You can walk into Springburn Community Hub, which is our base in Springburn Shopping Centre. I remember folk when I was growing up. He's paid to do that. Don't you do it? Let them do it. That's their job. Those days are gone. They are gone. Folk, you need to take part. Take a stand. We all are walking wounded for many, many different reasons. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is very, very real. Very real. It is 2 doors down. It's up the stairs. It's the person you're talking to. And of course, folk still have that real difficulty coming to terms with it. Yeah. It's that barrier to dealing with it, bottling it, keeping it in, keeping it down, and managing your day-to-day. But there's a reason why you're in pain. There's a reason why you have become addicted to some form of coping skill, which is what it is, a coping skill. But there has to be a way of finding that safe venue to opening up and talking about it. And if we can just find that compassion within each other, it needs that investment. And I don't just mean money. Yeah. That safe place in that one person that you can talk to each other. There is a lot of work, and we will just all work together. You are not alone.
So yeah, if you're out there, get involved with Spirit of Springburn. Helen, thank you very, very much for joining us on the Glasgow Memories Podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. I shall post links to the Spirit of Springburn in the description of the podcast. And yeah, please join us, Glasgow Memories Podcast, on Facebook, where you can find links to Spirit of Springburn and more information on how you can volunteer, drop in, or just say hello to Helen. Once again, Helen, thank you so much. And join us next time on the Glasgow Memories Podcast for another amazing guest on the sofa with me, Frank McGowan. Have a great day and keep smiling. If you've been affected by any of the issues discussed in today's episode of the Glasgow Memories Podcast, please reach out for support from your mental health practitioner, GP or local healthcare provider. If you're in the Glasgow area and are looking for mental health support, check out GAMH, Glasgow Association for Mental Health, online at www.gamh.org.uk for more information on services, including self-directed, one-to-one and peer group support. Breathing Space is a free national telephone number for anyone in Scotland feeling low, anxious or depressed. You can call anytime on 0800 838587 for immediate support, and you're talking to someone in full confidentiality. Check local listings in your own town, area or country for alternative numbers and groups. Stay safe, and remember, we're glad you're here, even if we haven't met yet. Thank you for listening to the Glasgow Memories Podcast.